Ancient Sumer, the city that taught the world to write. Chapter 1. The Land Between Rivers. Before Rome raised its roads, before Greece carved its myths into marble, before Babylon became a name of power, there was Sumer, a land of mud, river, sun and storm, a land between two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Between them stretched a country of reeds and clay. No great forests, no mountains of stone, no endless supply of timber. And yet, from that soft earth, the first great cities rose. The people of Sumer learned to survive by mastering water. They dug canals, raised embankments, opened irrigation channels, measured fields, stored grain, and turned unpredictable floods into harvests. Slowly, villages became towns, towns became city-states, and city-states became worlds of their own. Uruk, Ur, Eridu, Lagash, Nippur, Kish. Each city had its own walls, its own temples, its own rulers, its own gods, and its own memory. In Uruk, a young scribe named Enmedu stood on the roof of his father's house and watched the morning sun strike the baked brick walls. He was 16 years old, thin, sharp-eyed, always watching. His hands were stained with clay from the tablet house. He had been chosen for one of the most powerful skills in the ancient world. He would learn the sacred marks, the wedge-shaped signs pressed into wet clay, cuneiform, the writing of Sumer. To most people, clay was for bricks, pots, seals and bowls. But to Enmedu, clay was memory. It could hold grain counts, tax lists, contracts, songs, prayers, laws, royal commands, and the names of the dead. Sumer did not only build cities, it taught humanity how to remember. Chapter 2. Uruk, the first great city. Uruk was not merely a settlement, it was one of the first true cities on earth. Its streets carried farmers, merchants, brewers, shepherds, potters, priests, soldiers, laborers, and scribes. Its markets overflowed with barley, dates, wool, fish, beer, oil, copper, lapis lazuli, carved seals, and imported wood. Its canals glittered beneath the sun. Its walls rose from baked brick. Its storehouses held grain for thousands. Its temples towered above the city like stairways to heaven. Sumerian cities were built with astonishing organization. Fields were measured, labor was assigned, rations were distributed, animals were counted, trade was recorded, bricks were stamped, goods were sealed. Every transaction mattered, every shipment mattered, every field, flock, worker, and jar of oil could be written down. This was one of Sumer's greatest achievements: administration, record-keeping, the ability to run a city not by memory alone, but by written systems. In the tablet school, Enmedu learned that writing was discipline. The master scribe, Shulgi, trained the boys with hard eyes and a sharper voice. Again and again, they copied signs for barley, sheep, labor, canal, temple, king, and god. Writing began as accounting, but it became much more. It became law, literature, history, myth, mathematics, education, power. The Sumerians created schools for scribes. They trained specialists. They preserved knowledge. They turned clay into libraries. Sumerian achievement did not stop with writing. Their number system used base 60. That ancient system still echoes today. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 360 degrees in a circle. They measured fields, tracked grain, calculated labor, divided time, watched the skies, and built a foundation for mathematics that would influence later civilizations for thousands of years. One morning, Shulgi placed an old tablet before the students. It was not a grain record. It was a king list. The tablet spoke of ancient cities, ancient rulers, a great flood, and kingship descending from heaven. To Enmedu, the words felt heavier than ordinary writing. They revealed how Sumer understood the world. Cities were not just practical places, they were sacred places. Kingship was not merely politics, it was cosmic order. And writing did not only count grain, it gave shape to reality. Chapter 3. Temples, Gods, and Kings. At the heart of Uruk stood the sacred district. There, temple platforms rose above the city. Terraced structures of mud brick climbed toward the sky. The ziggurat form would become one of Mesopotamia's most recognizable achievements. To the people of Sumer, the temple was not only a place of worship, it was the center of the city's economy. Grain flowed in, rations flowed out. Fields belonged to the gods. Workers served the gods. Priests managed the estates. Scribes recorded everything. In the temple, of Inanna served a priestess named Tashmet. She sang hymns in chambers filled with incense and lamplight. Inanna was queen of heaven, lady of love and war, morning star, evening star, a goddess of beauty, desire, violence, kingship and power. Through rituals, songs, offerings and festivals, the people of Uruk believed their city remained connected to the divine. Sumerian religion shaped everything: architecture, politics, calendars, kingship, labor, art, music, even war. The gods were not distant ideas. They were woven into the daily machinery of the city. A king ruled because the gods allowed him to rule. A temple stored grain because the gods owned the land. A scribe wrote because divine order had to be preserved in human marks. The king of Uruk was named Lugalkin. He wanted to be remembered forever. He raised walls higher, expanded canals, restored shrines, ordered storehouses, sent traders far beyond the city, demanded more bricks, more grain, more labor, and more inscriptions. Like many Sumerian rulers, he understood that building was power. A wall could defend a city, a canal could feed it, a temple could sanctify it, but an inscription could carry a king's name into the future. Enmedu was chosen to assist with a royal foundation text. It would be buried beneath the new wall. It would declare Lugalkin protector of Uruk, beloved of Inanna, chosen by Anu, shepherd of the people, builder of wonders. To the king, writing was immortality. To Enmedu, it was becoming something more complicated. Writing could preserve truth, but it could also preserve power's version of truth. Chapter 4. Canals, Bricks, and Labor. The king's wall required bricks. The bricks required clay. The clay required water, and the water required canals. Sumerian civilization depended on irrigation. Without canals, the fields would dry. Without fields, there would be no grain. Without grain, no temples, no armies, no schools, no scribes, no cities. The canal system was one of Sumer's greatest achievements, but it came at a human cost. South of Uruk, thousands of laborers worked beneath the white heat of the sun. Some were farmers paying labor tax. Some were prisoners. Some were debtors. Some were men with no choice at all. Among them was Abum, a scarred canal worker with broad shoulders and a quiet face. His daughter Iltani sold fish in the market. Abum did not care whether the king was chosen by heaven. He cared whether the ration bowl was full. Enmedu recorded labor crews from beneath a reed shade. Names were called, rations counted, absences punished. He had copied tablets about labor all his life, But at the canal, the numbers had faces, burned backs, split hands, dusty eyes. Exhausted men carrying baskets of clay for a wall that would bear the king's name. That afternoon, the canal bank collapsed. Mud and water surged. Men screamed. A young worker was trapped waist-deep in the mud. Abum ran toward him. The bank cracked. The water rose. But Abum would not let go. He pulled the young man free just before the bank gave way. For a moment, Abum vanished beneath brown water. When they dragged him out, he was alive, coughing mud from his lungs. The overseer cursed the delay. The official tablet recorded damaged work and lost time. But that night, Enmedu pressed one private line into scrap clay. Abum saved a man from the canal. It was not required. It was not official. But it happened, and Enmedu wrote it. Chapter 5. Markets, Trade, and Iltani. Uruk's market was a world of its own. Fish from the marshes, dates from palm groves, barley from irrigated fields, wool from temple flocks, oil in sealed jars, copper from distant lands, lapis lazuli from far mountains, cedar and timber carried through trade routes. Sumer had little stone, little wood, and few metals. So the Sumerians became traders. They sent goods out. They brought rare materials in. They used cylinder seals to mark ownership. They created contracts to protect transactions. They developed systems of weights, measures, and accounting. Commerce became another form of civilization. In that market stood Iltani, daughter of Abum. She knew Uruk better than most scribes. Which alleys flooded first, which guards took bribes, which merchants lied, which priests were generous, which widows needed food. Every morning she carried baskets of fish packed in wet reeds. By mid-morning she was shouting above the noise of buyers, donkeys, children and traders. She was quick with numbers, quicker with insults, and entirely unimpressed by clean-robed officials. After Abum's injury, his ration was reduced. The tablet said he had missed labor. The tablet did not say why. Iltani fought the ration clerk in the market. Enmedu intervened. He knew the system. He knew where the marks belonged. He restored the ration by recording what the official account had ignored. Abum had not abandoned labor. He had been injured saving another worker. That moment changed Enmedu. He saw that writing was not only a tool of kings, temples, and merchants, it could also defend the forgotten. A line of clay could take grain from a storehouse and return it to a hungry family. A mark could punish. A mark could protect. A mark could erase a man, or preserve him. Chapter 6. Flood, Calendar, and Sky. Sumerian cities remembered water. They remembered floods that broke walls, floods that filled homes, floods that carried bodies through streets. The people watched rivers, seasons, stars, and storms because survival depended on timing. When to plant, when to harvest, when to dredge canals, when to store grain, when to prepare for flood. The Sumerians developed calendars tied to the moon, the seasons, and religious festivals. They watched the heavens from temple platforms. They tracked cycles. They associated planets and stars with divine powers. Their observations would later influence Babylonian astronomy, and through Babylon, much of the ancient world. One evening, a storm rolled over Uruk. Clouds gathered like black wool. In the archive, Enmedu copied an ancient flood story. A king warned by a god, a boat built in secret, animals gathered, a storm sent by divine anger, waters covering the land, a survivor offering sacrifice after the flood. The story was old even then, older than Enmedu, older than Lugalkin, maybe older than Uruk itself. Then shouting rose outside. The lower streets were flooding. The canal gates had jammed. People carried children to rooftops. A wall collapsed near the potter's quarter. At the canal gate, Abum worked despite his injury. Iltani hauled mud in the rain. Enmedu dropped his tablet and joined them. For hours, scribes, workers, merchants, priests, children and soldiers fought the flood together. Near dawn, the gate broke free. The water surged into the canal. The streets slowly lowered, and Uruk survived. At sunrise, Enmedu looked across the city. The walls, the temples, the houses, the market, the canals. Everything seemed permanent in sunlight, but in the storm he had seen the truth. Civilization was fragile. It was only mud arranged against chaos. Chapter 7. War between cities. Sumer was not one kingdom. It was a land of rival city-states. Uruk, Kish, Lagash, Umma, Ur, Nippur. Each city had fields, canals, gods, rulers and ambitions, and because water was life, disputes over canals, boundaries and grain could become war. A messenger from Kish arrived in Uruk covered in dust. Border fields had burned, merchants had vanished from the road. A canal dispute had become a royal insult, and in the world of kings, insult often demanded blood. The army of Uruk marched north. Infantry carried spears and shields. Slingers walked barefoot through dust. Donkeys pulled carts loaded with grain and water. Priests carried divine standards. Scribes carried tablets. Even war had to be recorded. How many soldiers? How many rations? How many weapons? How many dead? On the third day, Uruk met Kish on an open plain. No temple, no wall, no market, only dust. Then the drums began. Stones flew. Arrows followed. Then men crashed into men. Wood struck wood. Bronze struck bone. The battlefield became too loud, too fast, too human for neat marks in clay. Enmedu tried to record the battle, but the battle refused to become orderly. A wounded soldier fell near him. Abum appeared from the supply carts and dragged the man back. Enmedu dropped his tablet to help. When he returned, the official battle tablet had been crushed underfoot. By evening, Uruk held the field. Kish withdrew. Priests declared divine favor. Scribes prepared victory language. Lugalkin would be called mighty. The enemy would be called wicked. But Enmedu had seen the faces. The dead of Kish looked no different from the dead of Uruk. That night, beneath a sky crowded with stars, he made a private tablet. He did not write victory. He wrote names, as many as he could learn. Chapter 8. Law, Memory, and Hidden Records. Sumerian society depended on law and record-keeping. Contracts were written. Debts were recorded. Marriages could be documented. Land could be measured. Workers could be assigned. Rations could be calculated. Disputes could be judged. Long before later law codes became famous, Sumerians were already building legal and administrative traditions that shaped Mesopotamia. But law in clay could serve justice or power. After the war, Uruk celebrated. The official inscription praised Lugalkin. The king had defended the city. The gods had favored him. The enemy had been humbled. Order had been restored. But Enmedu had another record, a list of dead men, not organized by rank, not divided by city, not praising the king, just names. Uruk names, Kish names, workers, drivers, slingers, unknown men described by scars, clothing, or last words. When Master Shulgi discovered the tablet, he understood the danger. Official memory belonged to the city. Private truth could become accusation. But the old scribe did not destroy it. He wrapped it in cloth and told Enmedu to hide it in the forgotten storage rooms beneath the archive. Old tax records, broken seals, discarded tablets, things no one thought mattered. As Enmedu carried the tablet below, he understood something that would shape the rest of his life. Every city needs official memory, but every soul needs another kind. Chapter 9. When the Gods Go Silent. Years passed. Enmedu became a full scribe. Kala entered palace service. Tashmet rose in the temple. Abum's limp worsened. Iltani expanded her trade and became known as a woman no man cheated twice. And Uruk grew. Louder, richer, more crowded, more complex. Sumerian civilization was a machine of astonishing achievement. It organized labor on a massive scale. It distributed rations, maintained canals, built walls, managed temple estates, trained scribes, tracked trade, measured time, recorded law, preserved literature, developed mathematics, and created one of the earliest urban cultures in human history. But every machine demands fuel, grain, labor, water, obedience, memory. Then the drought came. The river dropped, fields dried, canals thinned, barley prices rose, ration bowls shrank. Children cried at night from hunger. The priests offered more incense. The king ordered more canal work. The scribes adjusted the numbers. But clay could not create grain, and prayers could not force clouds to open. The king issued a decree. Additional grain would be taken from private households for emergency redistribution. On the tablet, it sounded orderly. In the streets, it became chaos. Officials entered homes. Hidden jars were smashed. Storehouses were guarded. The poor accused the rich. The rich accused the palace. The palace accused hoarders. And beneath the surface, another fear began to spread. Maybe the gods had abandoned Uruk. Chapter 10. The Empty Bowls. It began with women, not soldiers, not nobles, not rival kings. Women. Mothers from the potter's quarter gathered outside a ration house and refused to leave. They carried empty bowls. At first the guards mocked them. Then more women came. Then old men. Then laborers. Then children. By noon, hundreds stood in the square, holding bowls toward the palace. No weapons, no banners, only hunger. Iltani stood near the front. Her voice cut through the crowd. She demanded grain, not promises, not rituals. Grain. The palace guards formed a line. The crowd refused to move. A stone flew. No one knew from where. Then the square exploded. Bowls shattered. People ran. Guards pushed into the crowd. A child fell. Iltani was dragged by the arm. Enmedu dropped his tablet and pulled her free. That night, he entered the archive alone. He took a fresh tablet, and he wrote what the official record would not. Empty bowls, shrunken rations, women beaten, children trampled, a city cracking beneath hunger. Then he carried the tablet beneath the archive. There he placed it beside the list of dead from the battle, and beside the line about Abum at the canal. He added another tablet. Abum saved a man from the canal. Iltani demanded grain. Tashmet sang when heaven was silent. Unknown child fell in the square of bowls. Uruk endures, but not without cost. Kala had followed him. He saw the hidden records. He understood what they were. Not just memories, accusations. Against every powerful man who needed the city to remember only one version of events. Kala feared the danger, but he did not report Enmedu. He only warned him that memory could not save a man from the palace. Enmedu knew that, but forgetting, he believed, killed people twice. Chapter 11. The Kings Forever. The drought finally broke. Rain returned. The rivers rose. Fields revived. Uruk survived. And because cities prefer relief to reflection, many acted as if survival proved righteousness. The king ordered thanksgiving rites. The priests proclaimed divine mercy. The people ate again. But Lugalkin had changed. He had seen how quickly empty bowls could become rebellion. He had seen that walls kept enemies out, but not anger in. So he sought something stronger than walls. He sought legacy. He summoned Enmedu to the palace. He wanted a great text, not an account, not a foundation line, a story. His victories, his buildings, his devotion to the gods, his justice, his protection of Uruk. He wanted future ages to find his name beneath the dust. This was the dream of kings, to escape death through writing, to command the future. For months, Enmedu wrote the king's story. He wrote of canals, walls, battles, offerings, judgments, festivals, storehouses, temples. He wrote of divine favor, enemies defeated, fields restored, Uruk preserved. The text was beautiful, too beautiful. It could make a reader believe Lugalkin had held the city together with his own hands. But every line omitted someone: the workers, the hungry, the dead, the women with bowls, the cart drivers, the canal crews, the boys who never returned from battle, the priestess who kept singing through doubt, the merchant woman who shouted truth in the market, the father who saved a life and earned a limp. The official text praised the king, but beneath the archive, Enmedu wrote the other text. He wrote at night, by oil lamp, slowly, carefully, not as a rebellion shouted in the square, but as a seed buried in the dark. He began, "In the days when Uruk rose high above the plain, men said the king alone built the city, but the city was built also by those whose names were not sung." He wrote of Abum, of Iltani, of Tashmet, of Kala, of Shulgi, of the dead from Kish and Uruk, of hunger, flood, war, canals, markets, temples, laws, trade, numbers, stars, lies, faith, labor, love, and clay. He did not write to destroy the king. He wrote to restore the people around him, because a civilization remembered only through rulers becomes a statue without blood. Chapter 12. The Last Scribe of Uruk. Years passed. Enmedu grew old in Uruk. His hands became slower. His hair turned grey. But each morning he still walked the streets of the city he had spent his life recording. He watched children run beside the canals, merchants shouting in the markets, temple smoke rising into the sky, workers repairing old walls already beginning to crack again beneath the heat and wind. Uruk was still alive, but Enmedu could feel time moving around it. Many of the people he once knew were gone. Shulgi was gone. Abum was gone. Others had disappeared into the long flow of years. Only their memories remained. And memories fade quickly when no one preserves them. One night, Enmedu descended beneath the archive one final time. He carried the writings he had hidden throughout his life. Not the king's version of the city, the real one. The story of ordinary people trying to survive beneath the power of kings, rivers, storms, and time itself. He sealed the chamber quietly. No audience, no ceremony, no great speech. Just an old scribe leaving his memories behind before the darkness finally took him too. Then the years became centuries, and the centuries became millennia. Uruk slowly disappeared beneath the earth. The language of Sumer was forgotten. Its temples collapsed. Its streets vanished beneath dust. and the people of the world no longer remembered the city that once stood between the rivers. Then, thousands of years later, archaeologists began digging through the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia. Buried beneath layers of sand and broken brick, they uncovered the lost remains of Sumer. Walls, temples, homes, tools, statues, and countless clay tablets. Among them were writings from scribes like Enmedu, records untouched for thousands of years, words from a world long gone. Scholars slowly deciphered the strange wedge-shaped symbols, and piece by piece, the ancient voices returned. The archaeologists discovered more than ruins. They discovered the story of one of humanity's first civilizations, a people who built cities from mud and river water, a people who struggled, traded, fought, worked, worshipped, and recorded their lives beneath the blazing sun of Mesopotamia. And through those buried writings, the people of Sumer survived, not as legends, not as myths, but as real human beings who once walked the streets of Uruk. Enmedu was never a king. No statue carried his name. But thousands of years after his death, his world was remembered again, because he wrote it down. Before Rome, before Greece, before Babylon became an empire, there was Sumer, and beneath the deserts of Iraq, its voice waited patiently for the world to hear it again. If you enjoyed this journey into the ancient world, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more cinematic stories from history and beyond. And if you want to continue exploring the mysteries of the ancient world, click on one of the videos now appearing on your screen and keep watching.